How's it going, guys? Welcome to the first episode of the Jonny Arnett podcast. I'm excited to now be a part of the UCast Studios team. Just so you know, I am an NBA YouTuber who has my own YouTube channel that you're free to check out. Link is in the description. And the NBA has been my passion for many years, ever since I was a little kid. I love the history of the game. I love comparing players throughout the different eras, throughout all the different generations. And the game has evolved throughout the years, but I love what it used to be, I love what it is today, and I love what it's becoming. I'm sure many of you who are just now tuning in see the Super Smash Brothers Ultimate footage playing in the background. I'm a big player myself. I'm a big gamer. I thought about starting my own gaming channel, but the whole COPPA thing, I'm not sure if you're aware of that, has kind of put that on delay for me. So who knows? I might start another YouTube channel that's centered around gaming, or I might end up moving to Twitch. But as of now, this allows me to put some of my Smash Brothers footage on the screen for you guys. I am a Bowser main. If any of you guys are Smash players and would like to play with me, I will have a comment down below. And in the comment section, if you leave me your friend code, I will give you an ad. Or maybe I'll just put my friend code. But yeah, I'd love to play with you guys. Who knows? Maybe if we get an arena together, I'll be recording. I'll be doing some screen capture, and you might see yourself in a future podcast. And so bear with me as we get through this first one, and as we get through this one together, as this is my first time, and listening to myself ramble talking about the game of basketball isn't normal for me. But I'm excited to do it. As usual, I'll be engaging with you guys in the comments section. One of the first things I wanted to talk about is the topic of LeBron James and Kobe Bryant. As this recording is taking place, it is Wednesday evening. The Lakers have a game coming up against the Orlando Magic, and as things currently stand, LeBron is fourth place on the all-time scoring list, 130 points behind Kobe Bryant. So within the next several games, LeBron will be passing Kobe on the all-time scoring list. And this is going to be extremely interesting. I'm very interested to see how the Staples Center crowd, how Laker fans are going to embrace LeBron when he does in fact pass Kobe. It'll be interesting to see if they do it in Staples Center. Will Kobe be in the building? Will he congratulate him? Will he be a part of a tribute video if they have something along those lines? I think at this point, most Laker fans have embraced LeBron. He came at the perfect time because we hadn't made the playoffs for many, many years, and he's completely resurrected the franchise. And I think everybody understands at this point with LeBron, you have pros and cons. You have things that you like about him, and he does want to trade away all of your youth, which is something that we won't be talking about here shortly. But I think most Laker fans, if I had to make a prediction, I know myself, I'll be happy to see it. If anybody wants to say or declare that LeBron James is a greater scorer than Kobe, I disagree with that. LeBron will be passing Kobe on the all-time scoring list, and he has a career average above Kobe. LeBron's averaging about a little over 27 points a game, while Kobe averaged 25 during his career. But there's a lot of different factors there, many variables. Kobe had to deal with injuries more often than LeBron did. When Kobe entered the league, he spent the first few years playing very few minutes. He only scored 7 points a game, 7.6 points a game, I believe, in his first year, and his sophomore year, just a hair above 15 points a game. And that was due to Del Harris giving Kobe very few minutes. So things like that, and then the Achilles tear, Kobe having torn ligaments in his shoulder, and then a fractured kneecap. All those injuries plagued Kobe towards the end of his career, and because of that, his career averages and his points per game numbers suffered. Now, I'm not saying this as an excuse for Kobe, not completely as an excuse for Kobe, but I mean, this is an area we can praise LeBron. He is passing Kobe on the all-time scoring list at this point because LeBron is essentially the Duracell battery of NBA players. He just keeps going. He very rarely does he deal with any significant injuries. And if you're going to make a LeBron GOAT argument, longevity is going to be a big part of that. LeBron is one of the most stable, consistent, reliable NBA players of all time. Not only does he take you to the finals or take you deep into the playoffs year after year, but he's also consistently putting up points in production. Last year, when he was dealing with the groin issues for the Lakers, that was one of the most significant injuries we've ever seen with him, which, relatively speaking, isn't all that big of an injury compared to many other NBA players. So I don't think that LeBron passing Kobe in full context makes him a greater scorer than Kobe, because Kobe was definitely the more explosive scorer. He had greater streaks of scoring 40 or more points, 50 or more points, a career high that's higher than LeBron. I think LeBron's career high doesn't even match Kobe's career high in only 3 quarters. So Kobe is certainly the more explosive scorer, and I think the better overall scorer, but LeBron might be the most consistent Hall of Famer in NBA history. I mean, the guy just turned 35 years old and is in the MVP race, which by all means should go to Giannis Antetokounmpo this year, but LeBron's in the discussion. Staying on the Lakers for a moment, the NBA trade deadline is approaching, and I don't understand why they are in the middle of these trade discussions so much. I saw an article on Bleacher Report that was saying that despite Kyle Kuzma's recent tear, the Lakers still have many issues, or it doesn't cover the Lakers' issues, I think is what the article said. And the Lakers are 33-7. They are currently on a 9-game winning streak, and they have by far the best record in the Western Conference. And yet everybody's talking about them like they have these gaping holes in their roster. I think they have what it takes right now to be NBA champions. I think Kyle Kuzma is a fantastic basketball player who can create offense for himself, and when he's on his game, he looks like he's superstar potential. Now, with that being said, Kuzma is extremely streaky. He'll have streaks where he'll be hitting 10 of 15 shots, and then another streak where he's 2 of 10. And so you never really know what to expect from the guy. But with that being said, I think it's hard for him to get in a rhythm when his minutes are so limited and when his touches are so infrequent. And that's kind of naturally what happens when you're the third man up behind Anthony Davis and LeBron James. And if you think about the history of guys who've played with LeBron, this is somewhat familiar. Remember when the Big Three Miami Heat were brought together, Chris Bosh was receiving lots of criticism and was constantly being told that he needed to bring more to the table, at least by the media. They were saying that his production wasn't there. He was the man who was always receiving criticism. And then in Cleveland, the same thing happened to Kevin Love behind Kyrie Irving and LeBron James. This is just what happens to the third man up for this exact reason. And for any of you guys out there, like myself, who played competitive basketball, you understand how hard it is to get into a rhythm when your touches are so infrequent. That's why we see Kyle Kuzma having by far his best games when LeBron or AD are sitting. And so it's going to be another one of those situations, if they trade Kuzma, which I do not believe they should do. They should not trade Kyle Kuzma. But if they do, it's going to be another one of those situations like D'Angelo Russell, like Brandon Ingram, where Kuzma is going to become a star somewhere else. Mark my words, that's going to happen. And it's a little bit confusing because I'm not sure if the Lakers know what they want. They're saying on one hand that there's a lot of people that are saying they need another shooter. On the other side of the spectrum, there's people saying that they need another playmaker. And I'm like, well, isn't that what Kyle Kuzma is? He might not be the greatest facilitator per se, but Rondo can do that. And Kyle Kuzma is a guy who can look for and find his own shot. He's not a guy who has to rely upon LeBron James in order to get buckets. So in theory, when LeBron goes to the bench, Kyle Kuzma should be able to be that Lou Williams for us, or just that type of guy who comes off of the bench and is an offensive spark. But because he's so inconsistent, he's constantly involved in trade talks. And what's weird is even when he gets a string of good games together, we have a 9-game winning streak, we have clearly the best record in the Western Conference, he's still in the middle of trade talks. It is this LeBron James, Lakers constant obsession with team changes, never being complacent, never being comfortable with the roster that you have. And it's a little bit of that toxicity that Kevin Durant was talking about. It's so hard for these players who are the supporting cast players to really get themselves into a rhythm. And I felt like that's what's been happening with the Lakers is they've looked like they've had chemistry, and they've looked like they've had times where the team is clicking and the team is doing well, but trade deadline comes around, we still have every player who's not LeBron James and Anthony Davis is apparently available in trade talks. And so I really hope that they don't make any moves. Kyle Kuzma is potentially a future superstar. He is the wingman that I think Anthony Davis could use when LeBron James is gone from the Lakers, assuming that Anthony Davis re-signs with the Lakers, which is still a big if. But if it's me, I do not trade him. I do not think the Lakers need to make any moves. They are 0-2 against the Clippers this year, and they also lost to the Milwaukee Bucks in Milwaukee. Now, Milwaukee beat them down, and that was a pretty convincing victory for the Bucks when they played the Lakers. But with that being said, games like that are going to happen. I don't expect Giannis Antetokounmpo to be making 6 3-pointers. I think it was 6 3-pointers he made when he played against the Lakers. If that happens, you just got to tip your cap to him, because the Bucks are going to beat you any night where Giannis is hitting just about every 3 he shoots. And then when you have the other games against the Clippers, there was the opening night game. But with that being said, the Lakers roster was completely new. And those players were learning how to gel and how to mesh together for the first time. And you could tell they looked rusty on that opening night. And the Clippers were pretty much in control the whole time. The second matchup between the Clippers and the Lakers about a month ago, the Lakers were in control basically that entire game. And they had a double-digit lead for most of the game. But they choked. Down the stretch, they choked. LeBron was not aggressive in the fourth quarter. The Lakers got back into it, but they lost barely at the end after that replay where the ball was out off of LeBron James. But the Lakers were in control, and I don't think that is a game where you're blaming the Lakers supporting cast. If the superstars had played like superstars down the stretch, the Lakers win that game, and they should have won that game. And so I don't get this notion or this idea that the Lakers have to make moves. As currently constructed, they should be Western Conference favorites. Anyway, so moving on from the Lakers and Kuzma and the trade deadline, I wanted to get into a couple of general NBA topics. One of the things the NBA is considering, or at least were considering, was reseeding. Reseeding the top 4 teams in the league, and it was going to be possible to have an NBA Finals that would be involving an East versus East team or a West versus West team. And that would obviously involve lots more money, lots more travel for the teams involved, but of all the proposed changes that the league offices were suggesting, this is the one that had me the most excited. And now, apparently, before it even is brought to a vote, the NBA is deciding to pull back on that one. Now, a lot of people hear the NBA making changes or considering changes, and a lot of basketball purists just hate the idea of the league making any adjustments. But I personally love this idea, and I wish the NBA would see this one through. Because even if you are an NBA purist and you love NBA history, think about some of the rich NBA history that we missed out on because we have an East versus West NBA Finals. Just off of the top of my head, I have a couple examples for you. Now, the 2000 NBA Finals was the first championship year for the Shaq and Kobe Lakers, and they were going up against Reggie Miller's Indiana Pacers. Now, although the Lakers won that game in 6 games, Kobe rolled his ankle in Game 2 of that series. Even though that took them to 6 games, we pretty much knew that the Lakers were the favorites. That was a year where the NBA championship was decided in the Western Conference. Now imagine if the 2000 NBA Finals was the Lakers versus the Blazers like we got in the Western Conference Finals. That was the year where Shaq and Kobe were down by about 15 points or so in the fourth quarter, and they charge back, make that great comeback in the 7th game, and Kobe lobs the ball to Shaq, who flushes it down, and they win that game. Imagine the setting if that was the NBA Finals. That would be one of the greatest finals series of all time. Also the 2002 NBA Finals, which once again involved the Lakers, and the Lakers won the championship. In the 2002 NBA Finals, it was Lakers and New Jersey Nets who had Jason Kidd and Kenyon Martin, but they never stood a chance against the Shaq and Kobe Lakers, and the Lakers steamrolled them. But in the Western Conference Finals, you had the Sacramento Kings and the Los Angeles Lakers, and that was one of the greatest playoff series of all time. That went to 7 games. I believe the 7th game even went to an overtime, if I remember correctly. But that was a hard-fought series, and that also would have been an NBA Finals classic if we were allowed to have a West versus West Finals at that time. The 2012 NBA Finals, you had the Miami Heat and the very young Oklahoma City Thunder, but there's a good chance that would have been Heat and Celtics. And the LeBron James Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics, led by Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, there was a serious rivalry at that time, and that once again could have been a really classic NBA Finals. Those are just some examples off the top of my head. I'm sure there's many others. You guys can let me know down in the comments section what are some other examples of awesome NBA Finals that we missed out on because it's an East versus West format. But this is a change that needs to happen. I hope the NBA reconsiders, because we even have a track record of seeing that there's been some pretty amazing championship series that we missed out on because this hasn't always been present. Something else that the NBA hasn't discussed doing, but CJ McCollum actually suggested. And McCollum has his, I believe McCollum, he has his own podcast, and he's always putting ideas out there. And this is an excellent one. He talked about having a one-on-one tournament and having it be a format to where players could actually challenge one another. And that would be really interesting. The NBA All-Star Weekend has had some life breathed back into it, especially after the players in recent years decided to make it competitive again. This will be the first year where we get to see players picking their teammates, where the captains will be choosing each other. As of right now, that would be Luka Doncic and LeBron James, who would be the team captains, picking the All-Stars that are going to be representing their team. So that's really exciting, but just imagine a one-on-one tournament. All-Star Saturday night, you have the skills challenge, you have the three-point shootout, and you have the dunk contest. If you throw in a one-on-one tournament, there's a good chance that becomes the main event over the slam dunk contest. Especially if you allow players to challenge each other like McCollum suggested. Any player who is challenged and doesn't accept that challenge would be roasted on social media. I think you would see just about every player accepting challenges. I think players would be down for this. I think this would be really revealing. There's a lot of times where we talk about great players and we're comparing some of the best players and we're saying, oh, this guy's better because he's got a few inches. Oh, Kevin Durant's so much better because he's 7 feet and he can shoot from everywhere on the court and he has the length. But what happens and what does that do to NBA conversations if a guy like Devin Booker takes out Kevin Durant? All of a sudden, it takes these hypothetical one-on-one scenarios and these comparisons that we've been talking about for years, and it just makes the whole thing brand new. So this is something I really want to see. I don't know where the advantage would lie. Is it going to simply lie with the bigger players? Is it going to lie with the quicker players? It would be extremely exciting, and the NBA needs to make this happen. I don't know why they're considering things like a tournament in the middle of the year for $1 million prize for the winners. It's like, we already have a championship. I'm not interested in a mid-season championship. If anything, let's consider the reseeding and let's give this one-on-one tournament a suggestion. I think the players would get up for this. You could put prize money involved in it. I think whoever won the tournament would wear it like a medal of honor. I think these guys would take a lot of pride in this. And I'm curious. I want to see how a guy like Joel Embiid would do against... I want to see how Joel Embiid does against Karl Anthony Towns. I want to see LeBron and Kevin Durant go at it. I want to see if Devin Booker can handle James Harden. I want to see how Luka Doncic is going to do against LeBron, against a lot of these guys. So let me know in the comment section what are some other one-on-one matchups you would be really excited to see. But personally, I would love to see any one of those. Speaking of hypothetical pickup games, hypothetical matchups between NBA greats, Shaq has been making headlines lately when he posted, I believe, onto his Instagram or his Twitter, a picture of him and Kobe up against Anthony Davis and LeBron James. And it's actually been interesting. It's sparked a lot of conversation. A lot of people have been taking sides on who they think would win. Personally, I think that's a joke of a comparison, if I'm being honest. I think the most interesting aspect would be Kobe versus LeBron. I think Kobe is the better one-on-one player. He's better in isolation plays. It's just more what he does. He has better footwork. Kobe made a living off of hitting difficult and contested shots. So I think a bigger LeBron James being up in Kobe's face isn't going to be anything that Kobe can't handle. But at the same time, LeBron is also bigger and stronger and could take Kobe to the post. And so it'd be interesting to see how those two players do against each other. But, I mean, Shaq and Anthony Davis, I understand Anthony Davis has all the skills, but Shaq was bullying around players back in his day much, much bigger than Anthony Davis. And it's funny because anytime you ask Kobe about hypothetical questions like this, he says the same thing every time. He'll say, "Who's going to guard Shaq?" He doesn't talk about how unstoppable he is. He always says, "Who's going to guard Shaq?" Because that's the most glaring mismatch. If you got rid of AD and gave LeBron a prime Wilt Chamberlain, well, then we have a real discussion. Then we have a comparison that's comparable to one another. But Shaq and Kobe against Anthony Davis and LeBron James, Shaq would eat up Anthony Davis. I think the more interesting comparison would be to see what happens between the Mamba and the King. Speaking of NBA All-Star Weekend, there's rumors going around right now that Dwight Howard is considering entering the slam dunk contest. I would love to see him in it. He's got a lot of his bounce back. If you've been watching Laker games this year, Dwight Howard's truly getting above the rim, and it's actually starting to remind me of some of his prime Orlando Magic days with the amount of elevation that he's getting. I feel like I haven't seen him with this kind of spring in a while, and I believe a lot of that is credit to the weight that he lost. He's slimmer. He's in better shape than he's been in a long time. I would love to see Dwight Howard in it. With the NBA dunk contest, though, a lot of it is about the names. And it's not just about getting the best dunkers out there. In some scenarios, I do think you could have the best dunkers out there, and it will make a great show. One of the examples is Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine, and that might be the greatest dunk contest in NBA history. Between Aaron Gordon, where he jumped over the mascot, put it underneath both legs, and dunked that thing behind his head. And then you had LaVine, who was doing windmill, free throw line dunks. I mean, the guys were insane. But the history of the NBA dunk contest tells us that it is received better, and there is more hype around the contest and more excitement around the dunks when there is actually stars doing the dunking. Vince Carter was a great dunk contest. He was an NBA superstar at the time who just had a flair about him. And I think if it was just some random 13th, 14th man on the roster, that dunk contest isn't as famous as it is today. You think about the 1988 NBA dunk contest where Michael Jordan and Dominique Wilkins are going at it in Chicago, and they're going toe-to-toe with one another, back-to-back 50-point dunks. Jordan's doing free throw line dunks, Dominique's doing incredible windmills. That might be the greatest dunk contest in NBA history when you consider what they were doing at the time and how new it was to everyone who was watching it. But once again, if you just took those two players and just made them some role players off a roster, nobody's talking about the 88 dunk contest anymore. Like, nobody even remembers that. But it was because it was two of the greatest superstars in the Eastern Conference at the time. Because you had guys who didn't just duel in the dunk contest, but Michael Jordan and Dominique Wilkins would constantly have battles throughout the regular season where the guys are dropping 40 or 50 points. And now they're going at it on All-Star Weekend at the NBA dunk contest. That's what I want to see in the dunk contest this year. That's what I want to see in the dunk contest any year. So I'd love to see just a few names. Dwight Howard, love to see him out there. Vince Carter. I mean, the guy can still get up, but it doesn't matter that he's 42 or 43 years old, however old he is. If he gets up and he throws down a windmill dunk, the crowd is going to erupt. Like, that's enough to bring excitement. He doesn't have to have the greatest dunks. Even if it's dunks we've seen before, that would bring so much excitement to the stadium. Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon, they're now stars because of their performances in the dunk contest, although Zach LaVine has really established himself of late as a scorer. But those are guys who I would love to see in the dunk contest. Let's just get some names back in there. That's what I'd really love to see. I don't even need anything original. I just need some of the marquee players of the NBA to be the ones who are doing the dunking. The Giannis Antetokounmpo free agency is coming up. He is a guy that has been very loyal to his franchise. He's talked about wanting to be with the Bucks for as long as possible, and that is something I want to see. He is very much an old school NBA player. In many instances, he said he's not into the buddy-buddy culture that the NBA has going right now. He doesn't work out with any of these guys in the summer, but he focuses on his own game, and he wants you to focus on your own game. And I respect that old school mentality of Giannis Antetokounmpo, but I don't think having that mentality, he's going to win a championship in today's day staying in Milwaukee. Don't hate on me, Bucks fans, because I actually want him to stay a Buck. I just have concerns that if he does, he's really got to open up to the idea of recruiting people. Because that's something LeBron James did when he was in Cleveland, is LeBron was constantly recruiting, and that's what he had to do. Because guys aren't clamoring to play in Cleveland, just like people aren't clamoring to go to the bright lights of Milwaukee. Giannis is going to have to do some convincing to bring in some co-stars in free agency if he wants to win a championship with the Bucks. Because I think having a best record with talented Giannis and a collection of shooters, I think that's something the Bucks can do. But if he wants to win a championship, he's gonna have to have a second superstar. And so one of those two things got to give. He either starts becoming a recruiter or he really starts looking elsewhere in free agency. I have been saying since last year that Giannis is the best player in the game. I think with his shortcomings in the playoffs, you could definitely debate that. But what he brings to the table night in, night out, the way he impacts the game on the offensive end and the defensive end with his incredible rebounding and his incredible efficiency, I just think he brings more to the table than any player in the game right now. The way kind of I look at it is like the late 2000s when you had LeBron, who was winning MVP for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and his team was winning about 50 to 60 games every year. Yet it was Kobe in the late 2000s and his Lakers that were winning the championships. People wanted to say at the time that LeBron was the best player in the league because statistically he appeared to be so, and he was winning the MVP awards, but yet time and time again in the playoffs, Kobe was the one getting it done. That's kind of how I view Giannis Antetokounmpo right now in comparison to guys like Kawhi Leonard, for example. Is Kawhi's the one who's getting it done when it matters, but when you look at the numbers and when you look at the capabilities of the player, Giannis has the most going for him. And the only reason we're not declaring him as the best player in the game today is simply because of his inability to get it done in the playoffs. And he really did come up small last year. He was exposed by Kawhi Leonard in those playoffs against the Raptors. So it'll be important that he gets it done this year, but I also think it's important that he gets some help. And so it goes back to, is he going to recruit or is he going to depart? Let me know in the comments section what you would do if you're Giannis. He has a solid supporting cast. Obviously, they're winning a lot of games this year, but having another superstar to rely upon to get you 20 to 25 points a game in the playoffs when the game slows down is really important in a 7-game series, because guys like Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, all of these guys can afford to have a bad night, because if they do, they've got a second superstar to rely upon. That is a luxury that Giannis does not have. So obviously I've been talking a lot in this podcast. These are just some topics that I came up with on my own, but you guys can let me know in the comment section below what are some topics that you'd like me to talk about. Some of them obviously will be relevant to today because we're always going to stay up to date on what's going on in the NBA as it happens. But on my channel, you know, I cover a lot of NBA history, and I love covering every decade and every era of basketball. And so if there's anything that you want to talk about, any players, any eras, any comparisons, let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Make sure to subscribe to UCast Studios. Also check the link in the description and give me a sub at my channel, Jonny Arnett, NBA YouTuber. And let me know what other topics you'd like to see us cover in the future. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.